Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Reading of the book Lord Meher, the biography of the Avatar of the Age, Meher Baba, Volume 1, starting from page number 130. And we are reading about Baba's boyhood days, and it's so fascinating to know so many things about his boyhood days. In his spare time, he read books about different religions and spirituality, including Gujarati writing of Sorabji Desai of Navsari. He did not like romance or love stories, but he did enjoy detective stories. He was a devoted reader of the British weekly magazine The Union Jack, which featured the exploits of Second Blake. Sherlock Holmes was another favorite. Mervan saved old issues and circulated them among friends, thus inculcating in them the habit of reading. Mervan once wrote a long letter to the author of Sexton Blake stories, appreciating his work and wishing him a successful career. The entire letter was published in a subsequent issue, the first time any of Mehran's writings were published. Mehran began writing articles in English and Gujarati on various subjects, which were published in different Indian newspapers under the pen name Huma. Similarly, his poems, shairis, couplets, and ghazals written in English, Gujarati, Persian, Farsi, Urdu, and Hindi under the pen name were greatly appreciated. When Mehran's permission, Bailey mailed one of Huma's Urdu ghazals to the popular Gujarati newspaper The Sanj Vartman, the evening news of Bombay, which published it in its Saturday issue. Thereafter, every Saturday issue contained one of Homer's compositions or articles. Later, the Bombay Samachar, another Gujarati newspaper, also published some of Homer's compositions. The poetic themes were invariably spiritual, emphasizing virtue over vice and the force of good over evil. His poems spoke of the mystical Sufi tavern or wine shop and described spiritual longing, divine madness, and God intoxication. Although still a teenager, Mervan possessed uncanny wisdom. If for any reason there was a delay or an article or poem was not submitted for publication, the readers clamored for more, and the editor even sent Mervan a concerned letter of inquiry, a tribute to Mervan's soul stirring ability. The popularity of his renderings can be gauged from the fact that once, during a visit to Bombay in Kalbadevi locality, Bailey overheard some Parsi youth in a music shop singing one of Mehran's Urdu ghazals titled Money, Alas Money. The boys were singing the lyrics with such zest while dancing that some of the pedestrians stopped to listen. Mehran's writing also drew praise from several scholars who wrote letters to the newspaper's editors in appreciation of Huma's achievements. Had they known that a teenager had written these poems, they would have been even more impressed. Mervan was also drawn to drama and would act in plays at school as well as participating in the local YMCA Young Men's Christian Association productions. He played his role so brilliantly that he won prizes for his performance several times. On one occasion at St. Vincent, he acted in the play titled Here She Goes, There She Goes, for which he was praised and was given a standing ovation. Jamshed would also take part in school plays, and the two brothers were frequently practiced together. Once Mervan was directing a play, and one boy who could not act well wished to have a small role. Although most of the cast did not want him in the play, they accepted him because his father was Dinshaw Mehran Irani, an important man in the Zoroastrian community. As Mervan pointed out, they had to let the boy have a part because they needed his father's support for the play to be well received. Thus, the boy was given a bit part. He was to come out on the stage with a dagger in his hand, raise it above him, and cry out in Gujarati, "Oh God, the spirit of my father." On opening night, the play started well until this boy's turn came. He was so nervous. He was so nervous that he came out on stage. The dagger was shaking in his hand, and he was not where he was supposed to be on the stage. When he lifted the dagger and cried out, "Oh, oh," the poor boy was unable to recite the rest of the line. Jamshed was in charge of raising and lowering the curtain. Merwan signaled to bring it down, and it was quickly lowered. However, because the boy was in the wrong place, the pole at the bottom of the curtain hit him on the back and he fell with the curtain on top of him. Only his head was striking out. The boy started shouting for help, and Jamshed panicked, starting to quickly lift starting to pull the boy's legs, but he could not budge him because the curtain was too heavy. At last, Merwan quickly lifted the pole, and the frightened boy was dragged backstage. By this time, the audience was in a delighted uproar. A seeming tragedy had turned into comedy. While at St. Vincent's, Merwan also wrote a complete film scenario of nearly 200 type pages in English and mailed it to Universal Film Studios in Hollywood, California. Unfortunately, what became of the screenplay is unknown, as he did not receive a reply from the American company. Merwan also kept busy and would often say, "Nothing is as bad as unoccupied time." He was a highly energetic boy, involved in something all the time, and was never found merely sitting around. In Bailey's notes, he recalled, Meherwan was never found idle, but was always engrossed in his studies or reading the book he liked. If tired of those things, he would come and play games with us. He was enthusiastic and industrious, his conduct and character flawless. Merwan persuaded those of his friends who were indolent to work with him in chores they disliked. By sharing in this labor, even these rascals became industrious by Meherwan's influence. None of his friends had ill feelings about this side of his nature, for Meherwan was their leader. For example, Bailey had no interest in sports at school, but Meherwan would persuade him to take part in the games. During the annual sports competition, Bailey's name appeared on the list of athletes. Although he had never signed up. Another student informed Bailey about it, and he complained to the principal that he was unable to participate and his name had mistakenly been added to the list. Father Wind Hossein told him that since his name was on the list, he had to play, or else he would be expelled from school. Bailey had to join in the competition even though he had little athletic ability. Afterwards, he found out that it was Meherwan who had this perpetuated this trick. Meherwan wanted to change his friend Bailey, who was somewhat lazy by nature and did not attend to his studies. The rascal was not popular with his fellow classmates and teachers, mainly because of his arrogant nature. Disciplinary action were taken but did not have much effect. So the principal informed Bailey's brother Homie that if his younger brother did not straighten out, he would be expelled. Homie knew Merman might be able to influence Bailey, so he told him about the principal's threat. Mervan immediately spoke to Bailey. Father Windhausen has told Homie that you will be tested today, and if you fail, he will be forced to consult your parents. The principal is threatening to expel you from school. Bailey asked, "Well, Mervan, what should I do?" Mervan replied, "You will be tested after the noon recess. You must memorize one particular poem which I will show you." Bailey promised to do so. Without going home for lunch, he studied the poem in quiet area of school. He did not really care about having to leave school, but he did not wish to lose Mervan's companionship. When Father Windhausen examined him later that afternoon, He asked Bailey to recite only that poem. Bailey passed the exam, and Father Minhosен even praised him to his elder brother, Homi. Bailey's teachers and classmates, who knew of his slothful nature, were amazed he had passed. Bailey was allowed to stay in school at St. Vincent's and attributed it to Meherwan's advice. Meherwan was writing poems frequently, and he wanted from another among all his friends for Bailey to become a poet also. Meherwan would write the first line, asking Bailey to rhyme the second line, and Bailey would painstakingly try his best. Occasionally, the two friends would try composing a ghazal, going to a quiet, solitary place like the neighborhood shrine of a Muslim saint or a Parbhat or the Parbati hill about 3 miles southwest of the city where they worked together in solitude. Meherwan had a natural aptitude for writing poetry. Bailey, on the other hand, was not thus inspired and was a strain for him to try and write. Occasionally, Meherwan would ask Bailey to compose an entire poem by himself within a fixed time. Bailey would do this best, and when it was completed, Meherwan would examine it, pointing out the errors and correcting them. During this period, living in Pune was a well-known Eur- during this period, living in Pune was a well-known European astrologer named Mr. Brownie, who was an acquaintance of Sheriar's. Mr. Brown persuaded Sheriar to allow him to examine his son's time of birth and predict his son's future. Since he had been impressed with Mervan for a long time and wanted to take a close look at the boy's astrological chart, Mervan did not believe in such occult sciences, but on his father's instance, when he was 15, he and Sheriar visited Mr. Brown's one day. The man was also an adept palmist and wanted to read Mervan's palm first before doing an astrological chart. He scanned the boy's palm intently and became confounded. He usually he usually required only 10 minutes to read someone's palm, but he was so astounded that he examined Mervan's hand for over an hour, consulting various books after minutely studying the lines. Mr. Brown then solemnly declared to Sheriar, "In the future, this boy will become the greatest philosopher of the age." Mr. Brown's prediction, however, produced no effect on either Mervan or his father. Mervan disliked fortune telling or the occult arts and refused to discuss the subject. With the passing of time, the family forgot about the man's prediction. Mervan's character sketch, foretold years later by another astrologer, proved accurate, as these excerpts indicate. The person born under the planetary effect of this chart will be the doer of great and good deeds. The man will be industrious. He will attain glory and fame all over the world. The person's devotion is profoundly deep and intense, and there will come a day when renunciation of all worldly things will manifest. Then he will become a great yogi and be acclaimed and worshipped as a great being. Another Anyone coming under his precious gaze or influence will be captivated and charmed, for his power of attraction and personality are marvelous. In conclusion, the soul will do some great work for humanity. Why is he born? To carry out the will and work of God on earth. This illustrious soul will be the medium of salvation for all who come in contact with him. Since Meherwan had changed schools, it was not possible for him to see his old friends as often as he would have liked, so he established the Cosmopolitan Club on the first floor of building not far from Char Baudi, the locality that Hazrat Babajan inhabited. Young boys of different religion would gather there, and although there were no fixed membership fee, all contributed towards the rent and purchases. A treasurer and secretary was appointed, and the president was Mervan, who would keep an eye on all receipts and expenditures. Games such as chess, checkers, cards, dice, etc., were provided for the members to enjoy, and the club also subscribed the Times of India, several Gujarati newspapers, and detective magazines of Sexton Blake. Books on philosophical and religious topics were purchased and kept in the charge of an appointed librarian. The Cosmopolitan Club was open from 7 to 11 a.m. and from 3 to 9 p.m., with a watchman hired to look after it when it was closed. The following six rules were drawn up by Meherwan. The use of indecent language is forbidden. Drinking of any alcoholic beverage is forbidden. Gambling is not allowed in the premises. Quarreling is not permitted. Feeling oneself to be superior to others on the basis of one's community, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or Zoroastrian, is forbidden. The goals of the members are to love all and maintain unity and brotherhood. Merwan was particularly vigilant to make certain that all members respected the conditions under which the club was set up. 2 days a week were fixed for members to deliver short lectures on subjects of interest, at which time all games stopped. The days of the lectures were enjoyable for intellectuals who were enthusiastic about their speeches. As each At each meeting, President Merwan would open the proceedings and introduce any new members. On, on lecture days, non members were allowed to attend as guests. No girls or women, however, were admitted. Every time a new member joined the club, he would have to deliver a speech uh, extempore, occasionally making blunders, much to the amusement of the audience. When it was Merwan's turn to give an address, the boys would listen even more attentively. Bailey remembered every Thursday any member would speak on the subject of his choice. There was a unique fun in listening to such talks. Amongst all the members, Merwan's talk would always be the best. Sunday being a holiday, the doors of the club would be open and all members could attend. However, on that day, there would be no games, and the members gathered would enjoy singing sessions. Even in this, Merwan was more prominent. His sweet and melodious voice created a unique joy among us. Without the accompaniment of tabla or harmonium, just by playing the dholak drum with his both hands, he sang the Urdu, Gujarati, Farsi songs and shairis so melodiously that the members would start swaying. In the midst of the song, several members would utter in praise, Wah Wah Meher and Shabash Meher, well done. Passers-by would often stand outside the club, listening and appreciating the music. There was only one European club member named Richard Dyke who would not speak any language other than English. Meherwan started giving Richard lesson in Persian so that it would become his second language. Richard was a sincere boy, good hearted and intelligent, but tragically, not long after joining the club, he died suddenly. On page 135, we see a picture where Baba is sitting. St. Vincent's High School cricket team in Pune, 1910. Meherwan seated next to winner's trophy shield with Jacob Modical. And on this page also there's a picture, very cute picture of young Baba Meherwan as he appeared in St. Vincent's High School cricket team photo. During the existence of Cosmopolitan Club, a boy named Ramnath, who lived in the same building where the club was located, became extremely attracted to Meherwan. Ramnath almost went mad on his obsession to be in Meherwan's company. He became so obsessed with Meherwan's companionship that he claimed it was hard for him to live even one day without seeing Meherwan. Ramnath was a Punjabi from northern India, whose parents were deceased and he was cared for by his elder brother. He was normally a merry and good-natured boy, just as to be able to see Meherwan every day. Ramnath became a member of the club and a close friendship was formed between the two teenagers. Ramnath was the first Buddhist in the club. He was devoutly religious and well read in Buddhism and other languages. He was always repeating the Buddha's name. With firm faith, the youth tried his best to follow Lord Buddha's precepts, Mehran and Ramnath became loyal companions and would go off to a secluded spot to meditate on God together. The two boys particularly liked going to the burning ghats, the Hindu cemetery grounds, where they would sit repeating different names of God. The two boys usually went to meditate at night and sometimes stayed at as late as 10 o'clock at the ghats, exchanging their views on a God, religion, and spirituality. Ramnath lived only for these sessions when uh, with Meherban and disliked worldly subjects which he found difficult. One day Ramnath showed Meherban a new book he had on the life of Gautama, the Buddha, titled Buddha Bhagwan, Lord Buddha. Thumbing those throughout the pages, Meherban came to a passage where Buddha said, "When I return to earth, I will be called Maitreya, or the merciful." Instantly, Meherban felt that he was the same merciful one to which the passage referred. He looked at Buddha's picture and felt within, "I am the Buddha." But he asked himself, "Am I really the Buddha?" And his inner voice assured him, "Yes, Meherban, you are." Seated watching the burning corpse at the cremation grounds, one night Meherban told Ramnath, "My friend, since you are so interested in Buddhism, why don't you go to Rangoon where you can learn much more?" Ramnath always took Meherban's advice to heart, and so he soon after travelled all the way to Rangoon in Burma alone, although he was only 16. Falling critically ill in Burma, Ramnath returned to Pune and was admitted to Sassoon Hospital, where Meherban would visit him every day. Ramnath told him, "I returned to Pune only to see you, Meherban." After a few days, during one of Meherban's visits, the young man died, and with his head on his friend's lap. Unknowingly, Ramnath left his mortal body on the lap of his Lord Buddha. From childhood, Meherban was characterized as soft-hearted, and the quality was expressed in the form of compassion. He devised a plan to spread the savings of Cosmopolitan Club to help the poor in Pune. A committee of 17 boys was formed called the Secret Seven, who managed this work. Meherban's rich friends also contributed to the club's funds. A club box was made and the key was kept by Meherban. If no donations had been received, Meherban himself, at the sacrifice of his own needs or wants, would donate the money. Thus, the committee was able to carry on its charitable work. The money was spent spontaneously to help some poor families or disabled people, and occasionally to take a destitute, sick person to the hospital. Another incident illustrates Meherban's uncommon kindness and mercy as a youth. One morning, he and Bailey were passing through Sachepar Street in the camp area. Meherban was on an important errand, and before both were in a hurry when Meherban's eyes fell on a direct lying by the roadside groaning. Most boys would have hurried on their way even more quickly, but not Meherban, who stopped to inquire about the man's identity, under whose treatment he was, what complaints he had, and so on. The man explained his illness and said that he was taking medicine from a municipal charity dispensary. Bailey was irritated and impatient, reminding Meherban of the urgent errands, but he waved away Bailey's repeated protest not to get involved and to leave the old bum lying where he was. Finally, Bailey and im- left in impatience, complaining that any help was in vain. Meherban had the man admitted to hospital through the intervention of his family doctor. Meherban himself removed the man's soiled clothes and gave him a hot bath, along with new clothes. For 2 months, until the sick man healed, Meherban nursed him and made sure he took medicine and nourishment regularly. When the doctor pronounced him cured and permitted him to leave the hospital, Meherwan helped him find a decent place to stay and work, thereafter visiting him occasionally. When Meherwan was 16, he had to resign as president of Cosmopolitan Club since he had to prepare for his matriculation examination. He had to concentrate on his studies, and considering his other activities, it was not possible to continue as the president. He had been the life of the club, and it was sad for the other boys to see him depart. Soon after, the club disbanded because the other members, original members, the main contributors, also went on to higher studies or entered business after they graduated from St. Vincent's. Although the Cosmopolitan Club lasted only a few years, through it Meherwan laid a foundation of idealism and self service among its members. Whatever money was obtained at the dissolution of the club from remaining fees, sales of furniture, books, magazines, games, sets, etc., was first applied to pay the rent on the premises. A meeting was then called to decide how to use the balance. All proposed to leave the disposition of the money to Meherwan's good sense and felt that it would have been necessary even to call the meeting. The group decided to use the money for the benefit of poor and needy families by providing them with grains, clothing, bedding, and blankets for the winter. Because there was not enough to fully fund his this noble philanthropic work, the boys decided to bet the remaining amount at the horse track. If it is in the destiny of the poor to win, one boy opined, then that is what will happen. Meher approved the idea. One afternoon after lunch, Meherwan, Bailey, and two others went to the races at the Pune Turf Club. Bailey described what happened. Meherwan had no experience of races at all, except for watching the horses race standing outside the racecourse railing. He had not done this before. The reason he took us along is because we had lots of knowledge and experience. The first race started at 2:30 p.m. Thousands had gathered and lakhs of rupees were in play. The bell rang, the race finished, and the names and numbers of the first, second, and the third winners were announced and placed on the board. There was a lot of noise and hustle bustle all around. The horse we had bet to win had come in third. Had we bet on this horse to finish third, we would have made a little money. Trying not to commit the same mistake, we bet the second race on the favorite both to win and to place third, and waited in hope. Here again we met with disappointment. Since the horse we bet on lagged from the start and finished poorly. Now we had only one chance to try our luck. Merwan suggested that we pass on the third race and bet on the fourth race. However, his two advisors were eager to try to win immediately. They were of the firm opinion that we would surely win in the third race. They also suggested that the plan had been formed at the outset to play the first three races, and there was no reason to alter the plan. Meherwan was helpless against this argument. Thus, with a throbbing heart, the tickets for the third race was purchased on one horse to finish first and third. The outcome was just as disappointing as the prior two races, and now the money was gone. Meherwan quickly started to walk out of the racecourse. All our efforts to stop him and to pacify him were in vain. I too followed him. On the way, he paused for a while and said, "Bailey, the fate of the poor is always poor. There is no doubt about it. Poor fellows." Saying this, he sat down on the large stone nearby, holding his head in both his hands. He sat there for a few moments, absorbed in deep thought, and then quickly stood up and said, "Man proposes and God disposes. God's will always prevails. So be it. There is no need to be displeased or disheartened over it, because God alone knows his pain. We have not the slightest knowledge of it. Whatever has happened is for the best. Thus thinking, we should wait patiently. That is our duty. Come on, I have not had tea since morning. My head is heavy. I'm having talab, craving for tea. This was Merwan's first and last experience with horse riding. Sharia's family had grown, and he had his family moved into rented rooms at Bhagwan Das Chawl, where they lived for about 2 years. In December 1911, Meherwan passed the matriculation exam given by Bombay University. He then joined the freshman class of Deccan College in Pune for higher studies in interscience. Deccan College was considered among the best college level institutions. It also had a boat club with excellent facilities for sports, and its students formed an integrated student body taking from different religions and communities in the area. In college, Marwan soon gathered a circle of close friends and again became a favorite of his classmates and professors. All admired the striking young man's leadership qualities. As a college student, Meherwan was exceptionally bright and would often participate in sports, cricket again being his favorite. He was the best. He was a good batsman and an exceptional wicketkeeper. He was acknowledged not only for his agility and energy during games but also for his sportsmanship. Meherwan's name became very famous in the college cricket team. Bailey recalled, without him, the match seemed very dull and lifeless. Meherwan also became a member of the college boat club, and with his close friends, he would row along the Mulla Muta River some evenings, spending many pleasant hours in this manner. While at Deccan College, Meherwan formed a dramatic troupe which rehearsed at his aunt Pilamasi and uncle Rustam Masa's house on such Peer Street. The group staged 2 or 3 public performances at a local theatre with the proceeds donated to charity. Meherban and his friends would sometimes attend kirtan performances, Hindi songs with narration about God or the gurus and saints. Gaj Maharaj was a Hindu saint of the sixth plane who, in his youth, wandered in India living off alms. He was later known as the perfect saint because not only did he teach the love of God but also performed selfless service by managing a leper colony in Pandalpur, India. Once Meherwan heard the great saint perform a kirtan in Pune. Although the humble saint was dressed in rags, Gagde Maharaj radiated divine love, and all with who attended were profoundly impressed. Meherwan also continued his writing. While time permitted, he would compose poems on religious themes, but he would also write harmonious satirical poems to amuse his friends, which which they liked and would sing along. In fact, Meherwan's college classmates and friends used to refer to him as the poet, sometimes called him the ideal poet or the flower and dal poet, which denoted a person who is experienced in what he writes, is capable of dealing with variety of subjects or themes, and can wield his pen in composing either long or short poems. Meher Meherwan was also referred to as born poet, who would rhyme effortlessly in 3 languages, Gujarati, Urdu, and Persian, on the most difficult and diverse subjects and themes. Often, for the sheer enjoyment of it, he would spontaneously compose a rhyme on any subject suggested by his friends. After passing his freshman year, Meherwan entered the sophomore class of Deccan College in 1912. At this time, some of his friends drank beer and he would occasionally join them for 1 or 2, but he detested a drunkenness. Merwan was good company and a merry friend who appreciated a good joke. He always tried to keep those around him happy. The college professors admired Meherwan and anticipated much success for him in the world. The young man of all classes respected him to such a degree that he would confide in him and confess their weaknesses. Some of his classmates who failed would plead for their professors to pass them, mainly so they could remain in Merwan's class. Although Bailey and Merwan had been the best pals throughout childhood, they had a painful falling out and had parted ways after high school. Bailey had a proud and arrogant nature, and this at times caused differences between the two youth. Bailey did not go to college but left Pune and moved to Lonavala, where he was employed as a manager in a store. Many months passed before Bailey and Merwan met again. One splendid morning, some people who were going on a picnic came into the store. They were coming from Pune and were on their way to Khandala and happened to stop at a store to purchase some items. The head of the party was Bailey's former teacher at St. Vincent, Mr. David, who immediately recognized Bailey and invited him to join the picnic, but he declined because of his responsibilities at the store. As Bailey talked about with them, someone mentioned Meherwan's name. Bailey immediately became excited to know more how Meherwan was doing. Meherwan had also come to Lonavala to see Jamshed, who had moved back to help Daula Masi and Fardum Masa manage their restaurant. While he didn't want to avoid Bailey, Meherwan did not seek him out, as he did not want to remind him of their painful parting of ways. Bailey, however, became overjoyed to know that Meherwan was going to join the picnic, and after the store closed, he planned to meet the group. By that time, some of the party had arrived with Meherwan at the store, where they met Bailey at the front door. All then left for Khandala, where they had a splendid picnic. Bailey and Meherwan were meeting after a lapse of a year and a half. Although Bailey wanted to ask Meherwan forgiveness, he did not do so in the presence of others. However, he and Meherwan exchanged smiling glances. Only one fellow in the group, who was a close friend of both, knew the disagreement between them. Before leaving Khandala that evening, this fellow addressed the group. I must request our respected teacher, Mr. David, to use his influence to bring friendship between two friends among us who have parted company for over a year. This being such a happy occasion, it would be quite fitting to do so. Everyone else was puzzled over who the two friends were and wanted to know more about it. Even Mr. David was in the dark about the matter and asked the fellow to divulge their names. Bailey was embarrassed and confused, but Mr. David, after a close look at both young men, exclaimed, Meherwan does not need to be swayed or need the use of influence, but if it adds to your respect for him, I believe Meherwan would sacrifice himself in any way. I know that both are still friends, although they have not seen each other for a long time. I suggest both should exchange glasses of beer as a result to renew their friendship, as a gesture to renew their friendship and add to the happiness of our group. No sooner had Mr. David finished speaking than Meherwan stood up and, coming to Bailey, offered him a glass of beer, smiling. Bailey accepted it, and when he tried to express his gratitude at this loving gesture, Meherwan uttered the name of God and told him, Thank God alone. Amidst expression of joy, Mr. David called for recompense, and with his happy reconciliatory ending, they started for home. After embracing Meherwan, Bailey left the group at Lonavala while the others proceeded to Pune. Soon after, Bailey moved back to Pune, resuming his work, close association with Meherwan as before. We are at page 142. It has been absolutely delightful to read about Baba's childhood days. It's very touching and very meaningful. And we thank Baba for this opportunity to read his song, to read about his life. We will read again with his will and his blessings, and we will close today's reading with the usual plea to Baba that he should help us be close to his divine feet. बाबा मैं चरणन छोड़ न जाऊं, दाता मैं चरणन छोड़ न जाऊं, जहाँ मैं तुमको सुख लागत है, जहाँ मैं तुमको सुख लागत है, वहाँ बिन कछु नहीं चाहूं, वहाँ बिन कछु नहीं चाहूं, बाबा मैं चरणन छोड़ न जाऊं, तुम जैसे राखो वैसे रहूं मैं, तुम जैसे राखो वैसे रहूं मैं, तुम बिन नाही चाहूं कछु मैं, बाबा बाबा जपो निरंतर, में हर जपो निरंतर, तुम पर वारी वारी जाऊं, बाबा मैं चरणन छोड़न जाऊं, दाता मैं चरणन छोड़ न जाऊं, मेहर मैं चरणन छोड़ न जाऊं। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय, अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय, अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।